Got a really special guest today, Adam DeRito.
I decided that I was going to go into the Marines. And the thing is, I was not a big drinker, but I had a couple beers. I was 21 at the time. But then this woman hands me this drink, and I drink it, and I don't remember anything after midnight. And I remember everything when I drink. I wake up the next morning, and I'm in a dorm room. It's a Sunday. I'm supposed to be back on base by 9 for formation. Tell him what happened. I'm like, sir, I think I got raped. And he's like, oh, of course you got raped, DeRito, because now you're just trying to get out of being in trouble. Never, ever, ever, ever give your case away to military police, because they will do whatever they can to hide it and cover it up and not put any responsibility on you. Air Force OSI goes, and this is the second biggest legal mistake I ever had, never having a lawyer, never having anything. They're like, hey, your commander just wants to give you an Article 15 for fraternization. It's no big deal. Slap on the wrist, you get out of here. I'm like, that's it. I signed this Article 15 for fraternization, and then I just go be a Marine and end this. And they're like, yeah. So I signed it without a lawyer, without counsel, without nothing. You know what the Air Force Academy did with that? They destroyed my life. They took everything I worked for in the last 4 years, meant nothing.
And there's no paperwork or anything.
No, they just said get off base. Here's your checkout list of handing in your sheets and your cadet uniforms. That's not how that works, obviously.
No.
But that's how it worked for me. And so I start, how I cope with stuff is I work out.
Yeah.
So I start working out every single day, 8 hours a day in the gym, because I got a free, membership at 24 Hour Fitness because I'm in the military, right? And,
Sure.
So
yeah.
I have no money. So I'm just trying to mentally make it through this.
Right.
And like, hey, man, if you're going to be here all the time, why don't you just work here? So I had my credit card, and I just go out and get like a personal training certification, and I just start hazing civilians, and they start paying me. Like, oh, they love the military guy. And I was like so pissed off, and I was drinking every night and just, finding random women at bars and stuff, because I'm,
you're trying to ease your pain.
Yeah, just making bad life decisions. But like, I'm in shape and I'm doing stuff. It's whatever, right? So, it just kind of, I didn't know what to do, because like, what else am I going to do by this point in my life? But I'm like, all right, let's figure this out. So I apply to UC Denver with a federal, whatever loans, and I go to UC Denver to get a degree in psychology. I had to do another 40 credit hours to get a degree under them. I was able to transfer most of my credits over, right? Because I was at least able to get some transcripts from them.
Yeah.
So I'm like going to normal college while working full time at 24 Hour Fitness. I had a girlfriend at the time, who I'd met while personal training, obviously. And things were going okay. I'm like, all right, I could do this. And I'm like, all right, but there's a window. If I can just get my degree done, I graduated Marine OCS in 2009. If I can get it done before 2012, I can still commission. It's been 3 years.
Okay.
So I go to the Marine OSO, Officer Selection Office, and I'm just like, hey, man, like, if I do this, can I get in? He's like, yeah, you're probably not going to get a pilot slot anymore, but we can at least get you in. But the problem was, this is a weird time in the military. It was a riff going on under Obama. So once again...
reduction in force.
So once again, but I was...
those were the wonderful years.
Yeah, but the problem with me was I was a normal white guy, academy guy, and they were only taking DEI selects, unfortunately, and I didn't get a slot. So my 3-year time was up by 2012. Didn't know what was going on. And then my girlfriend...
So now you've been a civilian for years.
Like 2 years at this point. 2010, 2012, right? So I finished my degree. I'm working at 24 Hour Fitness, then Lifetime Fitness. And then my girlfriend tells me she's pregnant. And I'm like, what am I going to do? I'm making like $150 a week, and it's like traumatic for both of us because we don't know what's going on. And I'm a Catholic, but like I wasn't a practicing Catholic at the time because I gave up on God and everything, because why would God do this to someone like me? That's my answer.
Yeah.
Anyone who reads Job, go read that a few times.
Right.
Right. And this was probably one of the hardest things was she, and collectively with me, she decided to get an abortion. And I look back on it now, and it was one of the biggest regrets I have in my life, because I'd have a 15-year-old daughter at this point in time, or 13. And but at the time, that was a decision that she made. And that's something I don't talk about a lot.
You felt like you probably... did you feel like you don't have any say in the matter, or?
Yes and no. I think if we both decided that maybe we could figure this out, but at the time, like, we were just like, oh, we're broken, we're barely making it as now. Like, we can't do this. And I still think it was the wrong decision now. I don't think it was the right decision. I think I should have stuck it out, and maybe we would have made things work. But, ironically, she ended up moving to Nashville after that and became a nurse, and she's living a great life now with her own kids and doing whatever else. We're still friendly with each other. You know what I mean? But it was a hard point in my life, and I needed to disappear. And I'm like, I can't take this anymore. I'm never going to go back into the military. I just went through this traumatic experience with my ex-girlfriend now, and I need to go away where no one knows me. And my sponsor mom, she worked in the oil field at the time. She was a secretary for a major oil corporation. And she just throws this newspaper article down the desk and she's like, "You ever hear of fracking?" I'm like, "No." And she's like, "Well, you can go do this and change your life and disappear." And I'm like, I have no idea what this is. And when I was personal training, I met this guy named Matt Greifey. He was a Marine, and I was personal training him, and he was a brand new lawyer out of the Marine Corps. He was a Fallujah guy, like crazy dude. But he was telling me, like, dude, your case is fucked up. Like, everything they did to you was illegal, but I can't afford to pay him at the time. But he's like, hey, if you trade me personal training hours, I'll trade you free hours to,
Okay, so you bartered, yeah.
So we start working on my Air Force case. We start appealing to the Air Force Board of Corrections and Military Records and realized that, like, but I didn't know all the details we'll get to.
Yeah.
But I'm like, they can't kick me out for this. This is BS. That was my argument.
Right.
And they're like, nope, we disagree. Get fucked.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm like,
yeah.
great. So I need more money. And so I go to the oil field and I go from making $150 a week to making $100,000 a year overnight.
Wow. That's quite the shift.
But I'm working with some rough dudes, like bikers.
Yeah.
Ex-cons. Right. Ex-military guys. But drinking, strip clubs, Vegas.
Yeah.
2 weeks on, 1 week off. North Dakota, Texas, Ohio, everywhere we could go. But I mean, I'm loving it because no one knew who I was. I got to reinvent myself completely, and I'm living on the field and living out of trucks and listening to country music. Didn't even know what country music was until the oil field. I don't listen to country music much anymore for that exact reason. But I mean, it was the guys drinking energy drinks, living off of beef jerky, drinking and going to strip clubs every night. And I was having the time of my life. I gained a bunch of weight. I got super unhealthy, at least in a physical sense, because you don't have time to work out.
Yeah.
But you're fucking swinging sledgehammers all days, and whatever. You're staying in shape, like you're whatever. But no. And then I still wanted to go serve. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I still have this debt on my record that's not going away. They're garnishing my wages. They're just, I'm making all this money, but they're still taking half of it.
Jeez.
You know what I mean? And I'm like,
so they arbitrarily said you owe back this, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah. And I have no recourse because I don't have a good lawyer. And Matt's trying his best, but it's the government, man. Fighting the feds is really, really hard. So I'm like, I really, really need to disappear. Actually, I don't think I've ever told this story. So, I start doing research on the French Foreign Legion.
Okay.
Because I find out there was that guy, it was a captain, I think, at Fort Drum, and he pretended to kill himself, and they never found him in the woods, and he crossed the border to Canada and disappeared to the French Foreign Legion because he wanted to go to combat, and the Army never gave him that opportunity out of Fort Drum. And then he came back, and then he got arrested by the Army even though he had like 4 combat deployments, he was the general's personal security. Like, the guy had a great career in the Foreign Legion, but when you go to the French Foreign Legion, you can never talk to your family ever again.
Oh.
So he was given the option when he finished the service contract, do you want a new passport and a new identity, or do you want to go back to where you were? And he decided to come back and go reunite with his family and stuff, and then he got charged for faking his own death and all this other stuff. But I'm like, well, what if I go and just change my life and change my name? So I buy Rosetta Stone, I start trying to learn French. And I find I can't talk about the specifics, but there's a way to contact them. And I had it all set up. I was going to go to the border of Canada through North Dakota, and they were going to pick me up. I was going to get on some random cargo ship and illegally leave the United States and get in France. And I was going to go do my PT test and start my service in the French Foreign Legion. And the week before I was set to go, I'm like, let me give this one more shot before I make some massive, drastic life change. I can never talk to my family ever again.
Yeah, that's pretty drastic.
It was pretty drastic. But I was desperate, man. I mean, they were destroying my life. I was working my ass off.
Yeah.
And this is my biggest problem I still deal with today. Like, I'm never good enough. No matter what I do, no matter how much I might reinvent myself, no matter how much of a good, moral, ethical person I can be, they're still going to destroy my life.
That's what they'll do it to
like
you.
The government is.
Okay,
like,
gotcha.
No matter how much I'm working, no matter how much I went back to school, got another degree done. I was working on my master's at the time, working in the oil field. I was getting a master's in global energy management with a specialization in oil and gas production. It's 2015. I'm just about to graduate and finish my master's. Now I'm just going to go disappear and join the French Foreign Legion. But let me give this American military stuff one more shot.
Yeah.
I go to every single recruiter's office. I got a DD-214, but it was only half filled out, but it's signed by the Secretary of the Air Force. And they're like, who the hell did you piss off that it's signed by the Secretary of the Air Force? No one gets a DD-214 signed by the Secretary.
Yeah, mine was signed by the clerk at Fort Campbell.
Yeah,
no.
And they're like, hey, man, we're not. And I had been on the news at that time. I'll backtrack slightly, but I'd gone public with Operation Gridiron, and then I found out there was a bunch of CIs, but still nobody cares because I'm just a normal white dude, right?
Right.
And I'm like, whatever. Then I brought it to the news that no one's going to do anything about this. I got to leave. And I go to the National Guard's office. And it was like a scene out of a movie. I walk in there. And like, are you that kid from the news? And I'm like, yeah, I'm the. It's like, I know this sounds really, really weird. We've been waiting for you to come into this office. Yeah. And I said,
Wow.
Sergeant Tyler. Never forget his name, Sergeant Tyler. Because I ended up deploying with him years later, which is really funny.
Wow.
You know,
what a small world.
Yeah. So Sergeant Tyler goes, hey, you got to talk to this Sergeant First Class over here. And they pull out this rule book and they say, well, actually, your DD-214 can be overridden by the governor because he's the commander-in-chief, not the president.
National Guard. Yeah.
So your federal DD-14 can be completely disregarded by the state if we want to.
Yep.
And at the time, Governor Hickenlooper was the governor, who's now a senator. And he goes, all right, there's 3 conditions he can come into the Army, National Guard for the Colorado. 1, you have to serve in special operations. And there's only one group. There's 2 groups in the Guard. There's 20th group and 19th group. I'm like, okay. I'm like, crap, I have to go like to selection and shit. I'm like, no. We're not. You're going to go and support.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay.
Marine beret, not green.
And they're like, yeah. And they're like, all right, so you have one or 2 choices: generator mechanic or parachute rigger. You have no other option.
Rigger it is.
Rigger
right?
it is, because I jumped out of planes at the academy. I thought that was fun. And they said, okay, there's another thing. I'm like, what? They're like, well, even though you have your master's degree and you're 27 years old, the highest rank we're going to put you in is an E4.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's a big. But me learning my lessons from being too arrogant in the past, I sat there and went, okay. And they said, also, since you've had a 5-year break in service, you have to go back to basic training. And I'm like, no. So at 27 years old, as an E4 with a master's degree, making 6 figures a year, I got sent
who
to,
graduated, didn't graduate the academy.
Yeah, I get sent to Fort Jackson, North Carolina.
Relaxin' Jackson.
Jackson. As a 92 Romeo, which is a parachute rigger, 1S, which is the Special Forces designation. So I go out there and instantaneously they thought something was wrong with me, because they're like, you're 27 years old and you're an E4 with a master's degree making 6 figures a year. Why are you here?
Yeah.
And then some Ranger tab guy who was doing his staff duty tour out there Googles me and goes, this kid works for CID. Don't believe anything that he says. Because they instantaneously thought that I was a narc.
Yeah.
Because they're like, you work for Air Force OSI. This kid's a narc. Like, take him out.
Yeah.
So needless to say, basic training. Actually, and then another drill sergeant I had, Donahue.
Dude, you got a target on your back, man.
Staff Sergeant Donahue actually ended up deploying with my best friend Asa in the 173rd.
Okay.
So I'm sitting there in the ruck march just carrying the 240 Bravo. We're just talking about Asa and talking shit. And I'm not saying I had special treatment through basic training, but nobody messed with me.
Yeah.
They said, you're in charge of everybody. If anyone messes up, it's your fault. You understand? Okay, great. We're going to let you walk through here if you just leave us alone and don't report us for any of the weird shit that we do as drill sergeants. And I'm like, okay. And I kept my mouth shut. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, sergeant. No, sergeant. I just walked through basic training. I go to rigger school. Rigger school is great. Finish that out. I go to airborne school first.
Then you go to rigger. Yeah.
Yeah, go to airborne school. First time I ever pulled my reserve. Second jump out the door during a bad rainstorm. The plane had a red light. I said, fuck this. I'm getting out of the plane. Everyone was throwing up. We were doing racetracks for 3 hours. And I jump out of the plane. Parachute slinkies out of the T-11. Gets tangled up. Doesn't fully deploy. I pulled my reserve. I landed with 2 full shoots, and then I got yelled at for pulling my reserve. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, man. I'm not dying in this stupid parachute. So then I go to rigger school. Everything's fine. I go back to 19th group. Met all the Green Berets. You know, serious dudes, great gentlemen that I worked with. And I'm like, all right, I'm just going to sit down, shut up, and do my job. Did pack and shoots, jumping out of planes. Pack and shoots, jumping out of planes, shooting guns, learning stuff from the Green Berets. It was awesome. So much experience from those guys, because that's their job. They pretty much practice on their support guys.
Yeah, they're professional teachers. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So
because I was a guard commander company commander in the National Guard, and we had a ODA come out, and the team sergeant was like, this is some of the best training I can get because it teaches my guys how to work with people who aren't skilled.
Exactly.
Or as skilled, And I was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so I'm just hanging out, trying to be one of the enlisted dudes. Some people knew my story, some people didn't.
Right.
My shop NCO hates me. Still pretty sure he hates me to this day. Because he's like at E7, he's been there for like 20 years. He just resents academy people.
He just hates everything.
He just hates everything. Hates his life. Whatever. It's fine. I love you.
The salty,
I love you,
crusty E7.
I won't say his name, but I love you. Get over it. You'll be fine. Because I was like, master's degree, oil field worker, and they just hated me because like this E4 who just didn't care. Yeah. Like he hazed me a bunch of times.
You're the ultimate E4 mafia.
I was the king of the E4 mafia.
The ultimate sham shield.
I was.
Yeah.
So 2 years goes by, secret security clearance, everything's going good in the Army, no complaints. We go out to Utah to do some advanced free fall training for the Green Beret guys out there, learning how to pack the new RA-1s. And I meet with the Apache unit out there, the 211 Attack Reconnaissance Battalion. And They have two CW5s out there. They have the most hours in the Apache in the Army, like 30 and 40,000 hours.
Wow.
Father and son. Like, they're the Boeing test pilots. You know what I mean? They had the new E models out there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I want to fly. They're like, all right, drop your packet for warrant. Let's get you flying. We'll get you to Afghanistan by 2019. So it's 2017.
Okay.
I'm like, this is it. This is my chance. If I can just get commissioned, maybe I can make the argument to get rid of my debt. Because I still have my debt. Even though I'm serving, I still have my debt for some reason, which makes no sense.
Yeah,
so
that's we had a kid actually get in trouble, like, for real, in our ROTC. He got caught with drugs and stuff, and that was the option: is you either pay us back the money or you enlist.
Yeah.
So, like, he actually chose to pay the money.
Yeah. Well, but the Air Force is not accepting my time and services.
Yeah, you can't do both,
which is insane though, because like they should not be taking my money anymore because I'm serving in the Army, but they don't care. Because, like I said, you're still fighting all these legalisms and everything else, right? So I don't know what to do. So
sounds like a job for Doge, right?
Yeah.
Get
Elon Musk.
Yeah.
You're wasting so much money on this.
Yeah.
So I get everything approved.
I wonder how many cases like yours exist.
As far as I know,
where they're taking money and it shouldn't be getting taken.
As far as I know, since the amount of work I've done on this, I'm one of the, if not the only one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
As extensive as my case is. And so I get my flight packet approved, pass with flying colors. I take all the tests required, pass with flying colors, because I was going to fly in the Air Force, so I was pretty good with the pilot test at this point anyway.
You knew what you're doing, yeah.
I had orders to go to Fort Rucker at the time. I was getting ready to go, and I get to the final station at Fort Carson, like, hey, man, we can't let you leave. And I'm like, why? And they're like, well, we went through your medical records, and something populated from the Air Force saying you have several major psychological conditions. I'm like, what are you talking about? I went through MEPS. I went through the Army. This stuff would have been caught years ago.
So this is almost like a decade after.
Yeah. Well, no, it's 7 years after.
Okay.
I have a secret security clearance. I'm in Special Forces as a support guy. None of this stuff ever came up in MEPS in the Army. How is this stuff being populated now? This doesn't make any sense. My theory and my lawyer's theories now is that the Air Force found out I was trying to commission again, and they know if I try to commission that it nulls their argument, and they put something in there. So we do a FOIA request and get the paperwork back, and this doctor who I never met, her name is Kristen Nicole Henley Price. She's a major now, apparently, out of Andrews Air Force Base. I know where you are. And in 2011, apparently I met with the psychologist, and I was deemed crazy. Well, that's weird, because I was a civilian in 2011, so how is that possible? I was out in 2010. I didn't join again until 2015, and none of this stuff came up in MEPS, so how is it there now?
And so it's like her signature dated.
Oh, the best part is it's an actual signature, which is also not possible, because if you sign,
use CAC sign, yeah.
Even in 2010, we signed everything with CAC cards.
I had to do it in Afghanistan. It was like a freaking pain in the butt just to do our evaluations and stuff.
Every single medical appointment you go to, and I can even look it up now, is all signed in and out with my CAC card, except these psychological appointments that never happen that are hand signed with handwritten notes. Not a thing. It's not a thing.
No.
So I go to my lawyers with this, and I'm like, we got him. Black and white evidence. They've retaliated against me for reporting sexual assault. And they made all this up, and this is obvious, blatant retaliation. We can't lose. So 7 years later, I put on my Maroon Beret, and I have a letter of demand from my lawyer. I go back to the Air Force Academy. First time I've been there in 7 years. They let me in. I go right to the superintendent's office, and all these people think I'm AFSOC because in the Air Force, red berets are special operations.
Okay.
But I'm a Maroon Beret, but I guess these pilots are colorblind or whatever they are. They let me walk right into the 3-stars office because I said, I'm a specialist DeRito from 19 Special Forces Group. They're like, oh my God, Special Forces. The Air Force knows nothing about the Army. They're like saluting me. I have specialist rank, and I'm like, yeah, you got it. I mean, I should be a captain at this point, so I'll take it.
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean? So I walk in there, and I place the letter on the superintendent's and the vice superintendent's office. And I go, so I want to let you know, I know what you did. And keep in mind, this entire chain of command now has been swapped out. Whole new superintendent, whole new general staff. They have no idea who I am.
Yeah, they're only there for like 2 or 3 years.
I have my Air Force Academy ring on. I wave it at them, and I'm like, I'm back. Class of 2010. I want my degree. I want back pay. I want this off my record. And if you don't, I'm going public with this. They pretty much send me a letter back saying, go kick rocks. Good luck.
Yeah. And
I'm like, okay. So we filed a lawsuit in 10th District Court. We went through the Air Force Board of Corrections and Military Records again. We didn't get an answer from them, which is weird because normally 6 to 10 months, but it had been over a year at this point. So 2018, 2019, still no thing. I've been dating this girl for a long time at that point. We were engaged, but constantly putting it off for one reason or another. And the Air Force Board of Corrections and Military Records come back and says, we don't care. And I've got, okay, so I've exhausted all administrative remedies. So now we can go through this whole court thing, right? So I go through court, and even the 10th District Court was like, the evidence is pretty black and white that you retaliated or did something, and you might want to settle with DeRito.
Yeah.
You know, and I even offered to sign an NDA. I said, if you correct my medical records, give me my degree and my commission back, I don't even care about the money anymore, and take the debt off my record.
Right, yeah.
I will go away. Just do what is right, do what is moral and ethical, and give me my life back so I can continue my career in the Army and the oil field. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah.
I'm not asking for anything else. And they
said, you would have become a warrant or a
yeah, I would have been a warrant at the time.
Okay.
And they said no. And even the 10th District Court's like, you got to be kidding me. So I go to the 10th District Court of Appeals, which is right below the Supreme Court. And the court comes back, and the Air Force made this argument under Bishop Gruelle. And they state, the military is a separate society and should be treated as such. And under Parker versus Levy, the federal courts cannot tell the military what to do, even though you've been given an injustice. And I'm like, so wait a minute. So the military is now the fourth branch of government, and they supersede the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. Because technically I've gone through the executive branch process through admin, right? Congressional, and we'll get there later, they do nothing anyway. You know, I filed all my inquiries and whatever else, and it's not going to get them reelected. It's not a popular opinion to go against the Air Force Academy in Colorado. At the time, it was all these worthless congressmen like Ken Buck and Doug Lamborn, and they could care less. That's
well, you're seeing that. You're seeing this now too with the whole totally separate type of issue, but with the whole Medal of Honor fiasco going on with you know, a lot of even military veteran, you know, senators and stuff are like, well, the optics look bad.
And that's what it is. It's optics.
Right. And it's like, are you kidding me? Like, let's do the right thing here. You know?
I'm like, we're trying to uncover a major rape, sexual assault scandal at federal service academies, and you guys don't care because it's not going to get you votes.
Right.
And it's your voter base. That's your deep red areas. It's the only way to hold Republican strongholds for the congressmen and the senators involved in those areas. So they wanted nothing to do with it. Even Cory Gardner, who was a Republican senator at the time, didn't want to get involved. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I'm like, all right, whatever. So it's like 2020, and I get called up.
So they win the appeal?
They,
Air Force
they didn't win the appeal.
What's
it gets
the ruling
dismissed without prejudice, which means we agree with your argument, but we're dismissing it without making an official decision with nothing awarded to you. But if you come up with new evidence in the future, you can refile.
Okay.
Which is really dumb, but okay. So I'm like, all right, well, I guess I need more credibility. I guess I need to keep building this up.
And so this is what year now?
2019.
So that's hilarious too that they're using that, saying that the military is a separate society, because this is at the full height of like quota this and quota that and everything. So like, well, so are we a separate society or are we not?
Yeah.
Is it the most qualified, or is it we have to, you know what I mean? So it's like that argument in and of itself is already in contradiction to other policies that the entire DOD had been enacting at this time.
Yeah.
Insane.
So
just absolutely ridiculous.
So it comes up, and then, you know, me and my girlfriend at the time, or fiance, I'm like, all right. And to be fair, she was always super supportive of my case. And I reach out to Andy Stump, and I tell him the story, and he goes, come on the show. So I go up to North Dakota, and I tell this story. And the only thing I left out of it, which is what I regret now,
because you were in trial still.
Yeah. And it was weird. And like, you know, you can't show all your cards, so to speak. But the one thing I didn't mention was, you know, why did the Air Force Academy do all this stuff to you? And it was, well, they were covering up rape and sexual assault on the football team, and all these 3-star generals who become civilians afterwards and are part of these nonprofit organizations are making money off of rape. That's what it comes down to. Why would, like, the 30, I think it was like 36 kids we were going to get criminally charged. Only 2 of them were ever held accountable, as Cooks and Claxton. I'll never forget their names. And the reason I say their names is because it's public information.
Right.
Right? And then they still went to go play for Alcorn State University and play for the Green Bay Packers and the Washington Redskins. Because you can be a convicted sex offender in the NFL and you could still play.
Well, the NFL has a problem with that too.
Right. But I mean, like, all these kids got away with it.
But you say there was like this, okay, so these generals who, you know, they're commandants or whatever at the Air Force Academy,
superintendents or whatever.
They get out, retire, and now they're like on the board of whatever nonprofit that tries to attract football players to the academy to play. Because for those who may not be aware, not a great, if you're a good football player, you don't go to a service academy because you have to go do time in the military, which obviously ruins your chance of making the NFL. So, so they're basically doing shady things to try and attract people to come to the Air Force Academy to play? Is that the...
Yeah, I mean, and if I took down the Division I sports program, that costs them millions of dollars. So what's easier, get rid of DeRito or keep going on with what we're doing?
Right.
And that's what happened.
I say this about basically any type of issues, just follow the money. It's like so
that's
much
why
of
I learned
this
this
stuff,
an Intel guy.
like follow
the money.
All these things, like we're seeing in our government,
Mhm.
like with USAID and all this other types of, just follow the money. It's not even a conspiracy. It's like corruption is everywhere, and if you just follow the dollars, it becomes pretty obvious. And money is potentially the most important motivator for any human, right? Like it'll make people do a lot of crazy things. So
I mean, like after that, a lot of people on Andy's podcast were like, he's lying, he's making this up, and then even Andy,
because it's just too hard to believe. I'm sitting here and like I know how the legal process works, and I've executed UCMJ, proceedings on soldiers who have done the wrong things and things like that. Like I understand that process, and I'm just in my head, I can't even fathom how it even. I mean, this is literally people committing fraud willfully.
Yeah,
general officers choosing to basically pencil whip a legal process that requires numerous levels of paper trail that apparently doesn't exist. So
yeah, Lieutenant General Michael Gould, that's his name. He's also now the CEO of the Air Force Academy Association of Graduates now. Isn't that convenient? So they're still making money off this case, basically.
Wow.
And I even reached out to Andy after the podcast and never heard from him ever again because, he got lambasted for letting me come on because like this story just sounds crazy. And to be fair, everything up to this exact point is a story that I told him.
Yeah.
We still have what happened, what we're actually really here to talk about. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I told him the story. Basically, that's where the podcast ended.
Right.
But that's what had happened by 2019.
Right.
Right.
So now a lot has happened since.
Yeah. So, I mean, we decided, I won't say your name, but we decided to get married. And I get called up, I get activated for an actual Middle East deployment.
In the National Guard.
In the National Guard, right?
Okay.
So
as a part of...
So 19 Special Forces Group, 20 of us got attached to the 3157 HIMARS.
Okay.
Because we're experienced support guys. We know how to shoot guns. We know how to drive trucks. Yeah. So we're going to go over and help the conventional line units
and this
figure
is
out their
2019?
Into 20, right?
Okay.
2020. So I get married in August 2020.
Okay.
And then we go out and deploy with these guys. Right in October, we went down to Fort Bliss, did our
your train up.
Our workup. And then we were boots on ground in January. January 1st or 2nd.
Oh, no, right before COVID.
Yeah. Well, thank God we got there right as that hit.
Yeah.
Right. So rules were a little different when we actually get in the country.
Yeah.
When we were at Fort Bliss, it was retarded. Like, why am I wearing a mask on the range? This is so stupid.
Yeah.
In Fort Bliss, of all places. And keep in mind, that's when Afghanistan had just gone down, right? The whole withdrawal of Afghanistan. So they're bringing all these migrants in, right? 2020, right? In August, right? Or was it 21?
21.
Okay, so it was 21. So, sorry, it was actually 21.
September 21 is when it finally
So it was August 26, 2021 is the day that happened. And the reason I remember that is because my best friend from the Air Force Academy, Captain Matthew Rowland, got killed on August 26, 2015. So on the 6-year anniversary of his death, people were falling off of C-17s at the airport.
Right, this is when they were starting to withdraw people.
Right, so that went on for a couple days after that.
We didn't fully leave.
No, until September.
Because the bad bombing happened on the Abbey Gate was on 9/11, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah, right around that time frame. So
I think they did it on purpose on 9/11 as a
of course they did.
20-year anniversary giant middle finger.
Yeah,
to the US.
and I was actually involved in the evacuation. I had one of the guys I graduated with. He was an Air Force Academy Afghan Air Force guy, and his family was trapped, and he knew I was in Special Forces. Not that I can really do anything, but like I did. I contacted some of the team guys.
Sure.
We knew guys on ground. We got 36 people evacuated out of that whole thing. Some of the pilots of the C-17s were my freshmen at the academy. I was just pulling favors and buying bottles of Johnny Walker Blue and shipping them around the country. But we got people out. And so it wasn't 2020, it was 2021. Yeah. So I get married August 2021, go down, do workup, and then we go overseas. And I was assigned as an 88 Mike. I was a truck driver overseas as a support guy. And then people start finding out my story, like, oh, there's this weird dude. And, the rumor from the Air Force is, oh, he's that pedophile from the Air Force Academy. Because the Air Force labels me as that, even though that's not what happened. It was not even remotely close.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you guys know that story, right? Like, so it's...
Well, they can just instantly discredit you with that.
And that's what they do. The second you say that word, no matter what you say after that, doesn't matter.
You see this happen with, like... I mean, look at everything they've called Trump, Elon, like anyone who all things they called Hegseth. Like, anyone who stands up to expose anything instantly gets labels thrown on them.
And that's what happened to me. But for me, I'm just like, I'm going to keep my mouth shut.
But you're not like big enough to fight it, right? Like,
no.
Yeah.
I'm an E4. I got several years.
You're an E4 who graduated the Air Force Academy.
Has a master's degree. 6 figures a year.
Was
going to
go to warrant officer candidate school to become
fly.
a
Apache pilot.
Yeah.
Yep. I want to fly Apache.
Bro,
so bad too.
what?
So like we deploy and
it just makes my head hurt.
Yeah. Tell me about it. So we get on ground.
Like, how did no one in the Army just go like, because I'm just trying to think through this. Like, if the Army wanted someone in, they're going to like raise hell about.
So this is actually the funny part about that is that the Army does not have the ability to go in and change the Air Force's medical system. So even though the Army fully supported me, knew about my case, knew everything that was going on, like we still can't go in and take this medical record out of your record because it's on the Air Force
no, like,
side of the
exception
system.
to policy or anything they could write.
No, but they ignored it basically because obviously I was still in SF with a security clearance. I was deployed into a combat zone.
Yeah,
they didn't care,
like,
but they couldn't physically fix my case. Right? The Army physically couldn't go in and say, we're going to change this.
I got that. But I mean, they couldn't just like pencil whip it and take you to warrant officer school.
Because it's in the Air Force system. And that's what was preventing me in flight school because they pull it up on their pilot stuff and it comes up on their side as well. And they say, we can't do this unless this is out of your record. Believe me, I went through the whole rigmarole with these people, and they're like, we wish we could help you, DeRito. We just can't. And that's actually what probably Elon Musk has brought up, how our computer systems don't talk and how everything is broken and how everything's retarded. You know what I mean? This is a perfect example of why. You know, so we get on ground, and half the battalion hates me because they think I'm some weirdo from the Air Force.
Right.
Half the battalion loves me because I'm the guy from SF who's there to actually teach them how to shoot guns and drive trucks and do cool guy stuff because I still am. I have my commercial driver's license. I know how to operate heavy vehicles. I know how to maintain them. I worked in the oil field. I can spin wrenches all day. And the battalion commander goes, hey, I was working on a Hemet at the time, helping the mechanics do something, swapping out a transmission or something. I don't know. I just wanted to turn wrenches and do something because I was bored.
A Hemet is a really big truck.
Yeah, I was in Kuwait at the time, and I was bored as shit. I was just hanging out in the motor pool, just trying to do my job, be a good soldier.
Yep.
Right? And he goes, hey, you're the oil field guy, right? And I was like, yes, sir, I am. He's like, hey, can you come to the talk for a minute? We want you to look at something. And I met with some of the intel guys I'd met up with at Fort Bliss, and they told them my story, and they kind of, hey, this DeRito guy actually knows more than he appears.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I come in there, and they wanted me to do some analysis on the specific target about what was going on with some ISIS dudes in Syria and some weapons trafficking and explosives trafficking in Iraq. And I write up this whole thing. They gave me access to whatever. And they go, this is awesome. And I give the briefing card to the S2.
Yeah.
The S2 has no idea what I wrote, though.
Right.
So I'm there in stand-up in the morning in the talk because I wrote it. I gave it to the lieutenant or first lieutenant, and he starts, starts reading, can't read it. And then the XO stands up and goes, hey, Lieutenant blank, who wrote that card for you? And he goes, oh, that was Special Steward. Tell him to stand up and brief it because you don't know what you're doing. Sit down. So I've been on podcasts. I've been pretty good at public speaking at this point. So I do this whole public presentation on this, and they're like,
real quick, I gotta interject here. So for people who don't understand like how an Army staff works, the battalion commander almost always expects things to move
very quickly,
fluid and quick because this is a meeting that's important, but he's got other things to do too. He doesn't want to just sit there and have people stuttering over their words and wasting time. And so like as you're a young staff officer, especially, less is more. Calm, quiet, confident, sir, this, and this, pending your questions. Like, it's supposed to move rapidly. And if you are like staff, like the XO and battalion commander, like you can see the steam start coming off their heads.
Major Tannehill's head was going to explode.
I've watched people get eviscerated in staff meetings where like the battalion commander's like, and then the XO's like, what are you doing? Stop this meeting. Come outside. And they're like,
exactly what happened.
Yelling at people, you know, so it's a high pressure situation and you need to know how to speak well. And this is where you see tons of typically lieutenants, staff lieutenants in the non-fighting MOSs, you know, intel and all this kind of stuff. They overshare and they're just rambling, and then all the people with all the rank are like really mad, and it's not a situation to be in. So I just want to kind of like highlight that this isn't just a bad like mean commander. This is like an Army expectation. It's like this is how a staff meeting runs. It should take this many minutes for each section. Like there's literally a manual on it. So if people are listening, they're like, well, I don't understand why it's such a big deal. It's like, it's a big deal. It just is. Just accept it.
Well, and for me, like, I was an engineer in the oil field. I ran my own cruise.
You know what you're doing.
I've been podcasting then. I started the Dark Saber podcast talking about my academy case. So I was an okay public speaker, and I could get my point across very quickly. Yeah, and I'm taking longer here to do this, but I think it's important for people to understand the context.
Yeah.
But, after that, I was the intel briefer for the entire battalion as an E4. I was briefing the commanders, not the officer. You know what I mean? And I got highly respected for that. And then I got asked to work as an unofficial 35 Fox intel guy for the rest of deployment. So I was non-MOSQ, but I know more than most of the intel guys.
Not qualified for the job, basically.
Yeah, I never went to intel school. But I'm doing the intel job.
Yep.
And next thing I know, my name starts getting around. They're like, this kid actually knows what he's doing. He actually went to the Air Force Academy. He knows Space Force guys. Next thing I know, all the AFSAC guys that are in country, I know all the pilots. I went to school with them.
Yeah.
So I'm able to make connections with U-28 pilots, AC-130s, and like, how the heck do you know these people? And calling in assets and reconnaissance. I'm like, because I went to school with them.
Yeah.
And they're like, wait, what? And nobody understood, right? But
it's just so unheard of.
Yeah.
Like, I have never met an academy graduate be an E4. It's just impossible.
And at the time, I should have been a major.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. We're the same age.
Yeah.
Yes, so you would have actually be a year ahead of me.
Yeah. But if I had stayed active duty at this time in 2021, I would have been a major. Easy.
Well, you'd probably be creeping up on colonel already.
Yeah. So
I think like this coming year would be your look.
Actually. Yeah. So actually, this year, class of 2010, they're all getting promoted to lieutenant colonel right now, and looking at moving on to the next thing. Am I getting out or staying in? Right.
Yep.
And so I got highly respected. Next thing I know, I'm working with FBI agents, CIA dudes, NSA guys, and then I got asked to, hey, do you want to go work the Syria border mission, and go to Jordan, go work in the JSOC up there? I'm like, oh, yeah, absolutely. So I get to wear my civilian clothes and pretend I'm a cool guy.
Yeah.
And that's actually where I met up with civil affairs, right? So
okay.
I go up to Amman, and we start driving around. We're doing like some of these tours or whatever, religious tours. And that's actually where I refound my faith over there. It was because I had nothing else better to do but work out.
Yeah.
And I showed you some of those pictures. Like I was running an 8-minute mile at 289 pounds. You know what I mean? Because all I did was make PowerPoints.
Like strongman bodybuilder.
Yeah.
Like, lifting the Atlas balls type of.
Oh, but I was destroying my body, and then how I ended up getting injured was I jumped off a Hemet in full kit and fucking tore my Achilles and my calves and a whole bunch of other stuff. In addition to all the jump injuries I've had over the years.
Dang.
You know what I mean? But they're like, stop walking like a penguin. You're fine. You just have a sprained calf, and I didn't know that until I got back. But it was not a sprained calf. I just took they gave me Termadol. The medics were just shooting Termadol into my body. The high.
I don't know, but yeah.
It's an anti-inflammatory and whatever. They were just shooting me with needles for like 6 months because I'm like, I don't want to go home. I'm going to ride this out. I mostly sit at a desk all day, to be 100% honest, so I can make this. I'm just being honest. As an intel guy, you mostly sit at a desk and make PowerPoints and listen to 80th synthwave thinking you're working in Miami Vice. That was my life.
PowerPoint Ranger tab.
Yeah, so I get up there, ruffled a bunch of feathers with the intel guys up there because like, who is this specialist who's not an actual intel guy telling us what to do? And I'm like, I'm training you how to do your job. I'm working with Space Force, calling in assets and all this other stuff. But it was a really good deployment. We did some really good work out there. I met with the civil affairs dudes, and they said, hey, if you work in the oil field and you do all this stuff, you should consider dropping your packet to come over to civil affairs and reserve.
Right.
So, the deployment was awesome. I was living high on life, freshly married, basically. I'm ready to sit down and have a family. And I come back, and my entire life caved in on itself. I come back. Not only was I pretty injured, I was pretty messed up. I had so much scar tissue built up at the time that I needed like some heavy surgeries to fix my legs and everything else. But then I found out that my wife was having an affair the entire time I was deployed. And after being together with her for almost 10 years at this point, and all I wanted to do is be a dad and have kids, because I thought I was learning the principles of being a good dad. Like coming back to my faith, learning how to recover from massive trauma. Really learning how to be a moral and ethical person, getting rid of that old life I used to live.
Right.
And all I just wanted to do is be a good dad. I was so excited just to come home and have kids. And then my whole world blew up in my face, and I lost everything again. And I'm like, just when I thought things couldn't get worse, just when I thought things were getting a little bit better, I lost everything again. And, most men, when they go through a divorce, especially after a deployment, they want to attack the other person, and that's her story to tell. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I've made plenty of mistakes in my relationship, but especially ever since we got married, I was like, I tried to be the perfect husband as much as I could be. And it didn't work out, but could I take her to the cleaners about what would happen? Sure. But at the end of the day, I just kept rereading Job and going to church, and I got my surgeries done, so I was all messed up anyway on painkillers. everything else. And I'm just sitting by myself in my house most of the time with my dog. And I just let it go. I didn't go after her.
When you let it go in terms of not going to hang on to bitterness and releasing.
I had to learn what total surrender was.
Yes. Okay.
And I had to learn to give up all my pain to God and let him take it. And I did. And then things started getting better.
Man,
it was weird.
Boy, man, I can relate to that so much.
It's, I dropped my packet for direct commissioning into civil affairs. And when you direct commission to civil affairs in this very special program called 38 Golf, you can go right in as a captain, right? And I'm like, hey, it's not major, but whatever. And
that's a lot better than E4.
Well, my packet...
when you've been, basically, should be almost not a colonel.
Yeah, so I come over, and I was just recovering from surgery, so I went over there. They instantly promoted me to E5 because the slot was available. I couldn't get that in SF because guard slots are, you know how guard slots work.
Yeah.
And
you have to leave, basically.
Yeah, I go over there as an E5. I'm the Intel NCO over there, and I show up, and I meet my battalion commander the first day, and my battalion commander is Tulsi Gabbard. And I'm like, what is going on right now?
That's pretty wild.
And she goes, DeRito. I'm like, yes, ma'am. And she goes, you and I have the same enemies, don't we? And this is like, you know, when she was getting involved right out of politics and, you know, starting to work for the Trump administration.
It's about the same time, too, when she had been speaking up against, you know, hey, maybe we shouldn't be pushing this stuff on kids, right? Like, you know, okay.
And then right before she left the Democratic Party,
her party turned on her. Yeah.
Yeah, they did.
Right.
And this is what, 2022, 2023 timeframe.
Yeah, so she's really starting to, okay.
You know, and so I left the Guard and I go to the Reserve. I have a conversation behind closed doors, basically with Tulsi, or Lieutenant Colonel Gabbard, sorry.
Yeah.
And she goes,
Good recovery.
I know you have a lot of stuff going on, and I don't want to know all the details. I've heard about you, obviously. But my packet had gotten denied the first time when I came back from deployment because they found out DeRito's trying to commission again. Let's swipe that out of. And this is still under the Biden administration.
The Air Force.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they interfered. My packet got pulled with no reason, even though I was top three. I was top 3 in the 38 Golf program.
This is what. How on earth does I don't care what their rank is in the Air Force,
the Pentagon, dude,
tell the Army to do anything?
It's the Pentagon. It's how it works. Yeah, all these officers, and it's a circle jerk of coffee makers and water cooler conversations.
And they're all the guys who stayed in long enough just to have,
And half of them are Academy grads and know exactly who I am. Oh, he's the guy that supplied the Air Force Board of Corrections and military records 6 times, took us to court, whatever else. You know what I mean? So, and this is still under the Biden administration, right? So, you know,
which I will say were the worst 4 years.
They were the worst 4 years in the military, absolutely. And the problem is,
I don't have any of your things.
But I'm still dealing with all the corrupt DOJ officials that I dealt with in court. They're all still in the system.
Yeah,
and they know who I am, and they will stop anything from giving me any kind of justice whatsoever. And people don't understand that. Like, oh, you're supposed to be non-political in the military, and I am, but I'm just asking you to do the right thing, and they didn't.
So that's funny when they say that too, because the reason the last 4 years were the worst of my 4 years in the military, and I've technically been in the military in some form or fashion since 2007, right? So almost 20 years now of some level of involvement with it, whether it was ROTC or active duty. And I say that because our federal government politicized the military.
Yeah.
They made everything political. And when I say they, I mean the people with stars on their chests or senators and DOD this and that. And, they love to talk out both sides of their mouth.
No, they do.
It's 2 separate standards. It's rules for thee, not for me. And the military, and like Hegseth says this all the time, it should just be a meritocracy. It should be the only true meritocracy left in America. And it's far from that, clearly. Yeah. Which is just insane.
Yeah, so I heal up a little bit, and I'd start working with this lobbyist named Lindsay Rowland in D.C. She's an ex-Army captain, dealt with sexual assault herself as a deployed company commander. She was raped, in the Army.
And they covered it up or something?
Yeah, she went through a lot of trauma with that. And that's her, like I said, that's her story to tell.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right,
but
sure.
She understood my case.
Yeah.
She found me on Instagram because I went on, a couple of the podcasts and on the news, and she's like, Adam, you need to come out to DC. We need to meet. So against my better judgment, but I don't regret the decision whatsoever. She's like, just wear your full dress blue paratrooper uniform and go to DC.
What could go wrong?
So I have a stack of ribbons now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I got my Air Force Academy ring on, polished boots, Marine Beret. I go there and
we went to a bunch of different schools.
Yep. She got me a bunch of meetings with a bunch of super important congressmen and senators and congresswomen and everything else. And we just start knocking doors. And there was this 2-star Air Force Transcom guy, and he sees me in the elevator. He goes, Specialist DeRito, what are you doing here?
Mm.
And I sat there and went, I'm just trying to save our academy, sir. And I looked down at his hand. I see he has an Air Force Academy ring on. I wave mine. Then I hit the elevator door, bing, and the doors close. And then immediately he calls the Pentagon with his aide de camp. And then I had 15 missed phone calls from the Pentagon from General Hakkasan. And this is, I did the COVID deployment in DC, whatever else it is, right? So it turned to this giant shit show. I get a call from USASOC commanders going like, DeRito, I know what you're doing. This was your one trump card. Because we know if we try to give you an Article 15 for wearing a uniform in Congress on an unofficial capacity, like you would just make a bunch of phone calls for us. And I was like, yes, of course. That's exactly the amount of power I don't have. You don't tell them that, right? But like, then you start realizing these people with all this rank are not as really powerful as you think they are. They're just people, right? And if I can show up to Congress as an E4 with, technically a combat deployment as an intel guy, and I can do this, what else can I do?
Yeah.
So we start coming up with the DeRito Act. And the DeRito Act, because there's nothing in the UCMJ, that specifies it, but it should be illegal for any commander, NCO, civilian DOD personnel to falsify mental health records in retaliation for reporting sexual assault, harassment, or misconduct. I think that's a bipartisan issue. And as a result of passing this act, DeRito's debt goes away and he gets all his stuff back. Because if I can't win it in court, if I solidify it into law, then they have to give me my degree back and write that off.
Yeah.
So we've been trying to pass the DeRito Act for several years now, and we start going around Congress.
So you're just for context, you're keeping it that specific to just falsifying mental health because there's a lot of other things in my head, but you're keeping it very narrow to ensure that it could get pushed through, right?
Correct. Because as long as we can get our foot in the door with the act, then we can expand the act.
Correct.
Right. But the goal is keep it small ask, make it easy, make it palpable for Democrats and Republicans to agree on, and then if it does pass, we can expand on it later. We got lots of great responses from lots of congressmen. I won't say their names specifically because they don't want their names out there. But
I understand.
Colorado, Texas, Alabama, all over the place. And this is getting received pretty well. But it didn't pass under Biden, and we couldn't get it in there.
Of course.
And then the Trump election starts. And I'm like, you know what? I hate all of these people with a passion. I really do. Because, I have gone to the President of the United States. I got a letter from the White House. I went to the Secretary Austin. I went to the Secretary of the Air Force, Kendall. I did all the right things. I've exhausted my administrative processes. I went through all the way except the Supreme Court of the United States on my case. I have served my country honorably with a deployment, with a top secret security clearance. I don't understand what the problem is, why you guys won't give me my life back. So I guess
you currently have a
I have a TSSCI.
Which you can't have mental health issues and have.
And you also can't be a pedophile. Just to clarify that.
So both the claims they're saying against you is impossible to pass screening for those things. Like I just had to redo my regular security clearance because it's every 5 years now.
The SF-86, you make me sign
it's
all the time.
legit 100 pages of information I have to put in, and they call people from your past, and
I even call my ex-wife.
That's just for regular secret clearance. Yeah. So. There's no way you could have that you, like you said, you don't know the people that could fudge that for you, right? That you can't. And it's also a separate office. It's not the Army that gives it to you. It's anyway. So their claims, the two things they're saying against you is literally impossible.
It's impossible
to be those things and have a top secret clearance.
Yeah, it's impossible.
So
I'm like, all right, the only way to beat this game is play the game. I've spent over $250,000 in lawyer fees at this point, right? And I've done everything that I can, the administrative side, the executive branch side, and the military side. Well, let's try to do this politically. So Lindsay starts tying me into all these people. We get all these meetings and stuff. And the first thing I ever went to is I go out for the election of the chairman of Connecticut for Orange County to get him elected. Just getting involved on the small state side, county side. We go out there, we have delegates from Colorado here. I'm like, I'm not a delegate, but these people think stuff. And I'm like, all right, great. Kid gets elected. Well, he's also works directly with the Trump campaign for campaign donation stuff. Next thing I know, I get tickets to go to Mar-a-Lago. I'm like, wait a minute. So I helped this kid get elected. Youngest chairman in Orange County, Connecticut history. Love his family. Great kid. Still in school. Doing this stuff. But what I realized at the Trump campaign, when they started campaigning, is they got a lot of young people involved in their campaign because they know that they're the future of the party.
Yeah.
Right? So we got 22-year-old kids and 28-year-old kids who are bundlers selling tickets or getting people to Trump events and fundraisers and everything else. And he got me access. And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm going to Mar-a-Lago. And Lindsay's like, yeah, go buy a suit. And I'm like, okay. So I go get a suit. I go down there. I start meeting all these people. I met Roger Stone. I met, Wesley Hunt. I met Byron Donalds. I met, all these other crazy people. I met Paul Ingrassia, who was working on the Trump campaign as well, who's now the liaison for the DOJ for the White House. And I start going there and I just start talking to people about this stuff.
Yeah.
And it gets a lot of interest.
Yeah.
The DeRito Act, fighting for veterans, podcasting, doing the right thing, serving your country, combat deployment. And I get more done going to one fundraiser at Trump's house. And then he shows up and there's Trump, completely different person to what you see on the news, by the way. When you see him when he's off camera.
You mean the news portrays people
it's all
in
BS.
bad light?
It's all a lie. And this is what I hate about people who hate Trump so much. Like, I grew up with Trump as the Home Alone guy. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's actually how he is.
He used to be a Democrat.
I know, and he funded Chuck Schumer's entire campaign for years, right? Geez. So the crazy part about this is that when you start seeing how Trump is off camera at his house, he's actually just a grandfather and a dad who loves this country more than anyone I've ever met.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I didn't get to meet him personally, right? But I'm talking to Mike Flynn and his son.
Wow.
Like, all these people. I got pictures with them, right? And then next thing I know, hey, do you want to come to this event next month? Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
I start going to all these. Next thing I know, I'm at Trump Bedminster meeting with all the January 6th guys. And I was deployed for January 6th. So I know all about that stuff. And then I meet with.
We probably passed each other.
Literally. But I mean, we helped get some Marine officers and even Air Force Academy grads who I interviewed on my podcast on Tuxes and Tomahawks who were wrongfully imprisoned, and we helped get them out of jail.
Yeah.
Next thing I know, I meet this guy named Jason Loughran. Jason Loughran, he is the president for the America First Veterans Alliance. I meet him at Trump Bedminster. And he's like, I tell him my story. He's like, you need to get involved with this organization. And I'm like, well, I don't even know what this organization is. I have no idea what I'm doing. He goes, you need to start getting involved in local stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. So I start showing up to my local county commissioner meetings and everything else. And then I realized that everyone that's running the Republican Party, especially in the state of Colorado, are the people that sent me to war for 20 years.
Yeah.
And they have no idea what they're doing because they're doing a 6:30 a.m. pancake breakfast on a Wednesday when people like us have to work and take care of our kids. And I'm like, wait a minute. So you're telling me the reason why politics is so messed up is because a bunch of people who still think Reagan is alive are having pancake breakfast, and it's our fault for not getting involved. And we let them pass these laws, and we let them run the regulations, and we let them trans the kids, and we let them do this stuff. And because they think it's a social club hour and they want a name tag that says they're a representative so-and-so, I'm like, wait a minute, I could do this job. It's not that hard. So I start going to everything. I am the oil and gas worker. I am the Army veteran. I am the farmer. You know what I mean? I am the person that represents this county. Then I start realizing how much these people hate me. I'm like, oh, they're mad because we're going to upset the status quo.
Yeah, they want to keep their comfortable power.
Yeah. And then I start realizing, I'm like, I need to start teaching more people how to tailor suits. You know what I mean? I get invited down to Mar-a-Lago again. Military gala event. This is where Tuxes and Tomahawks comes from, right? Tuxedo. I go out and buy a tuxedo. Now it's like I'm wearing my academy ring. I'm going in a tuxedo. I'm back at Trump's house. Now I'm meeting with even more important and influential people. Then Lindsay and I are getting invited back to DC, and I'm like, it's that easy. You know, you spend a couple $100 on a plane ticket and a hotel room, and you get invited to these events. And next thing you know, I've made more progress in changing things by showing up than spending money on lawyers. You know, and then I just took it super personally. Jason invited me. He's like, hey, we're going to nominate you to be the vice chairman of the American Veterans First Alliance on the national scale, and you're going to be the president of the state of Colorado. And I'm like, all right. So then you start talking to all these vets our age. And they're just as disenfranchised with the system. We dealt with the system. We were deployed. We've seen our friends die. And we're really good at complaining about it. We're really good on going on Sean Ryan and Joe Rogan and bitching about the last 20 years. What are you doing about it? Nothing. You talk about being a strong man, being a father, being a masculine man, and stop. I didn't see any of you stopping all the gay books from being put into these kids' schools. It's a bunch of screaming women for the most part, and good on the moms for defending their kids.
Absolutely.
But I don't see the dads
there.
I don't see the fathers there.
This is one of my biggest talking points is, you know, and I get it. There's a lot of pressure, but as a man, your conviction has to be stronger than the ridicule or the opinions of others, period. Your dedication to what you believe is right and your objective is number one. Excuse me. So if you're a man of faith, let's take this a step further. You have to answer to one thing, God. And when you die, you're going to face him, and he's going to say, what did you do with the talents and resources I gave you? And if your answer isn't, I followed your rules because I was afraid of what people would say about me, Boy, I don't know. I don't want to have that conversation. But that should scare the crap. If you profess to be a Christian or a Catholic, any of that, and you say you believe those things, you should think about that sentence I just said, because that's what's going to happen according to the Bible that you profess to believe. And you should live your life according to that. And that's my stance, is where are all these supposed Christian men who've been nice guys for 40 years and they've just let the world walk all over them because they're afraid of being labeled homophobe or this or that, right? They're going to do it anyway. They being the people that disagree with you, they're going to just accuse you anyway, even if you do acquiesce to them. So, and where I'm with you, where are all the men standing up? And it doesn't mean women can't either, right? This isn't a battle of the sexes thing. But as a man, I don't know how you can possibly respect yourself by not being the warrior to defend the innocent.
Exactly. You're
it's
complaining
a requirement.
about
it's table stakes.
You're complaining about how your taxes are going up and how all these
you do nothing about it.
And how all these crazy laws are going up, and you have no problem selfieing yourself on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook. But
or looking at porn.
But exactly.
When you're married and all these other things.
But I didn't see you at that meeting. Why was I the only one there?
Right.
You all complain and bitch, but when the people that actually matter and count, you're not participating in the process. And if you're not at the table, if you don't have a seat, right? And then I realized, I'm like, we need to change things drastically.
Yeah.
The GWAT generation, our generation.
Yeah. The wars are over.
It's not over.
The real war is at home. And people are like, oh, the culture war is coming. Guys, we've been in the culture war, and we've been losing for 2 or 3 generations.
It's a slippery slope. You keep giving them a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. Now it's to the point where they're trying to ban my guns in the state of Colorado and say that my kids, or my future kids, are cats that can crap in litter boxes in the classroom. What are we doing?
And like remember all the things they said about millennials and like how we're the same age, so we're both millennials. I just remember even as a young, in my 20s. Just like all these statements about millennials this and millennials that, and they're a bunch of losers and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, we're the ones who fought your wars for 20 years.
Yeah, sorry, we were too busy in Iraq.
Or like what I forget what the one right before us is, but they're the youngest of the one right before us, and millennials.
Yeah,
fought your wars for 20 years, and then we came home to a country that you've pissed on, basically. You being boomers and Gen X and everything, and unfortunately, it's up to us now. So, and people are going to be like, well, that's not fair. No, it's not. But I have a daughter. I know you want to be a dad one day, and I'm glad you're already thinking like this, but more men who earlier on need to start thinking this way of, we have to stand up and take the fight to them today.
Now.
So that my daughter doesn't have to, so that your children don't have to, so that your grandchildren don't have to. Because like that's what's been the status goes, oh, someone else will deal with it eventually. It's the Good Samaritan, phenomenon where everyone just thinks someone else is going to handle it. No one's coming to save us.
No one's coming to save you.
Trump can't save you. Elon can't. There's no one person who can come to save it all. It takes us at the bottom raising our voices and being present in these, it's the local elections, the grassroots movements, your school board meetings, your town council this or what, just being heard is how you actually win. Because when they realize that we're not all silent and absent, like we've already alluded to multiple times, these people in power aren't actually courageous, strong people. They're
weak.
Most of them are just wanting to have the comfortable, easy thing handed to them so they can keep their name tag and all the benefits that comes with being a senator or whatever, right? Yep. And so if you actually make it uncomfortable for them, they bend over pretty easily.
Yeah.
Because they're not actually leaders.
I'm
they're
literally
elected
proof
officials.
Of that. And it's one thing that really helped me, especially since I came back so hard to my faith, unrelentingly and unapologetically Catholic now. Mm-hmm. Understand the hierarchy of relationships.
Yeah.
And this is I haven't really been in the dating world much, since since I came back after my divorce, and I've been very selective, you know what I mean? But God must come first in everything in your life. And if you're not judging everything about how I am to love God and love Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, then you are doing it immorally and unethically.
Yep.
And the next thing after that, and it's an unpopular opinion, it's your wife.
No, yeah, it is.
You must put your wife second to God because you are one body. You are one being, right? And you must cherish that relationship, because if you and your wife are not successful and are not demonstrating what a relationship is supposed to be, then how the heck are your kids supposed to model that in the future?
Yeah, I say this. I actually teach on this aggressively, that the marriage is the first institution, and when I get home, my daughter doesn't get the first hug and kiss.
Correct.
It's always my wife.
Yeah.
And I say things like, go tell my wife goodbye or go give my wife a kiss.
You have to set that standard.
Right. It's not insulting my daughter. It's showing her that my wife came before you. You know, mommy was here before you. I love mommy first. I love my wife first. And we love you together and we care for you, but you're going to grow up and move on and start your own family. Yeah. We will remain.
And in the Catholic religion and in Christianity in general, you are one person as a married body, right? And then your kids come next. And then after that is your family. And then after that is your friends. But I've seen so many broken marriages in the oil field, in the military, where, the reason why your marriage failed is because, one, you didn't put God and your wife first. You put everything else before that. And that led to porn addictions or drug addictions or alcohol addictions and everything else. And then you wonder why your life is falling apart. Yeah. And I will tell you that ever since I started doing that and prioritizing that above all else, everything changed.
Dude, my life got so much easier.
It's so simple, right?
I have more problems than I've ever had, right? I'm an entrepreneur now. I have more complexity in my life than I've maybe ever dealt with. My life is easier. I know that sounds like a paradox, but like my internal stress and the things I worry about and everything is far more manageable than it's ever been. The more that I pursued God first and then everything second.
Absolutely. And I do it every morning. I have a routine.
It sounds so too simple to be true. And I'm like, believe it or not, I'm going off of over a decade of George trying to do it on his own and basically just being an absolute dumpster fire.
How'd that work out for you?
Yeah, a dumpster fire, you know. Yeah. Go watch my Soft White Underbelly episode. You'll hear that there. So, and then the second I just kind of, like you said, fully let this go. Man, I have less control of my life, but feel like I have more control now. You know, I mean, it's
not like what really helped me was Father Mike Schmitz does Bible in a year. The catechism in a year and the rosary in a year.
Okay.
I do that every morning. That's my prayer thing. And I do that before I take care of myself. My body's my temple. Then I go work out.
Good.
Right. So I always put God first and the body that he gave me first.
Good.
Right. In my life. That's what I do all the time. Right. And when I started doing these things, everything started to change drastically. Last October, I got a letter in the mail. And it says, "Congratulations, DeRito. Sergeant DeRito, you've been selected for direct commission as a captain in the United States Army." And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. It finally happened. You know, and then my relationships with my parents improved, my family. And I'm so glad I got to see my grandmother one last time. She passed away, this last February, but she lived to be 100 and I got the podcast with her twice.
That's super
You know what
cool.
I mean? So I have a record of that.
Yeah. That's amazing.
And then next thing I know, things are going great in the Army. I'm getting promoted at work. Like things are going great, but this is actually where you have to be super careful. I go to Trump's house the third time, and then I get invited out for the inauguration by the presidential staff. I met with Pete Hegseth. I saw Tulsi again. She goes, "DeRito, I heard you got your commission back." And I was like, "Thank you, ma'am." She's like, whatever, right? And I met with, Meyer, the Medal of Honor winner from
Dakota Meyer.
Yeah. And I met with him at the Arlington Cemetery private ceremony. And then after that, I turned around the corner. There's Tyler Vargas. Tyler. And I know he doesn't understand this. When he did his podcast on Sean Ryan, those last two guys he pulled over the wall before the Abbey Gate blew, those were my guys. And I said thank you to him. And then I turn around, and next thing I know, I got invited by this private group to go out and jump into Normandy this year as part of the D-Day invasion. So, like, all these positive, amazing things are happening. And, like I said, but this is where the devil's in the details, because when things start to get easy, or you think things are going good,
think it's us.
You start to think it's you. It's not you.
Yep.
And this is where people start to creep into your life and you have to be extremely cautious.
Yeah.
And, I had been trying to date, at the time. And, this person, they hit all the check marks, hit all the boxes. They have all this power, influence, and money. And then I'm like, well, I'm involved in politics. I work with the Trump campaign in the background. I have all these connections. And then they start trying to weave your way into your life, into these little things. And then, then you find out that they're not who they said they are. And you have to understand that you have to reject evil even if you don't understand what it is.
Yep.
Because if it goes against anything in the hierarchy of your relationship that you establish as God first, then your wife. But if you don't have a wife and you don't have kids, you take care of your family after that, right? And you have to understand that. But when they're saying, oh, well, you need to put me first or you need to do this first.
Yeah.
Don't fall for that.
Yeah.
Like I said, the only thing that matters to me in my life right now is being a good Catholic, putting God first in my life, and making sure that I get married in the church this time, that I am the best father that I can be, and that my wife, my future wife, will love me just as much as I love God. You know, and
Well,
nothing.
she'll actually love God more.
Nothing.
You.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just like that song, you know, she loves me more than me, or she loves him more than me. Right.
Yeah.
It's, you have to be very cognizant of that. And this is something I had to learn the hard way, you know, somewhat recently, but it's, if there's a distraction from the path that God has designed for you and the talents that he's given you, you cannot let that happen.
Yeah.
You have to be able to cut it off and get rid of the evil in your life.
Right. And I think as men, that's why it's so important to have those types of guys around you that will pull your card.
Exactly. That's why
bro.
my circle of friends, I can count on my one hand.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a reason for that. And it's so important to foster those relationships and maintain contact with those people. But yeah, it's great. Yeah. I know Don Jr., I know Eric, you know, I know Tiffany, I know Laura, you know, I know Pete Hegseth, I know Tulsi. And you know what? It doesn't matter because we're all just people serving under God.
Yep.
You know, and and this is like the greatest gift of my life is one day I do become a good husband and I become a dad. That's all I want. My life is to be a dad. Like, I am so excited to be a dad. I don't think you understand. Like, I don't even have a wife. I don't have kids yet, but I am so excited. You know, but
I'm glad you're that excited because it's worth it.
But I'm also glad that I've gone through all these struggles and pain in my life now before I had to put my family through that.
Yeah, that is certainly a blessing in that instance. And, you know, you've learned immensely valuable lessons because you haven't let it destroy you. You've learned what you can from it.
Yeah, I could have been alcoholic, go back to porn, and just go hang out at the strip clubs again and go drop 10 grand.
You could have used it as an excuse. You could have used it as an excuse to tank your life, you know, and instead you found a way to release it, learn from it, and rise above it, and that's gonna make you very, very, very well suited for marriage and raising children.
Well, thank you.
I have no,
and I hope to live up to those expectations.
No, you will. I know the guys that you surround yourself with too. They'll ensure you do.
Yeah,
it right.
and my best friends tell me when I'm being an idiot. You need friends like that. Yeah. You know what I mean? You need friends that don't agree with you.
Absolutely.
You know, like, and
sure.
And for me, it's as I move up in the political world and, you know, trying to help reform the Colorado GOP and all these other things. When I turn around in the elections last week and I find out that we just reelected the same people that elected Reagan and are so disconnected from reality of what's going on. This is a call to all of you out there.
Yeah.
You need to be involved. Contact me. Find me on Instagram, Adam.DeRito2010. I don't care. I will find whatever state you're in. I will get you involved. I will try to make sure that you are the man that you say you are. You know, you rose your right hand to defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And I assure you that the more enemies you're ever going to fight are on the domestic front. It's not the guy overseas. And ironic, I tell those people, I respected the ISIS guys. I don't agree with them. We have different political ideologies, but they showed up to work every day to kill me and kill my friends and kill everyone who were there because they believed in what they believed in, their faith. They, you know, I don't agree with their faith, but that's what they believe in. And then I just send in an MQ-9 Reaper and then you disappear, but it's fine. You know, whatever, you know, survival of the fittest, my fist is the biggest, you know, like, get fuck nerds.
I haven't heard that.
You know, but I was also over there when I saw Ukraine kick off, and there's a lot of weird shit that people don't understand. Israel and Ukraine is not what you think it is, I promise you. It is way worse. You know, and I promise you, I will do whatever it takes with the men in this generation to ensure that we never send our kids to fight in a war like that.
Yep. You
know, I sound like a little bit of a hippie like that. I'm a conservative Catholic. Get over it. But you want to know what? If you allow these old geriatrics to continue to control the party that you support, even if you're a Democrat, I don't care. They're going to send you there because they are so involved in the military industrial complex and the devil lives in the details with money and, you know, all these other things that they do not care about you, just like they didn't care about us. They sent us over there to die and get maimed, to get hurt. And they're doing the same exact thing now because they're losing the grasp of power, which is why they fight Trump so much. Yeah. Right? It's because Trump understands he's the last.
He doesn't play their game. He's a threat to them. Yeah.
He understands he's the last of it. Yep. When he's done, he's done. And if we don't support like J.D. Vance or people of their ethical and moral responsibilities who live by principle and putting God first and their wife and their kids first, you know, or second and third, that we're going to continue this repetitive cycle where your taxes are going to go up, your kids are going to start losing their values. No one's going to know how to go start a fire or build a fort. Their eyes are going to be glued to their iPads, and that our country is just going to lose all its values in the systems. In order to be a good father, you need to be a good American. In order to be a good American, you need to take the responsibility of making one really simple decision. Do you want to be a citizen or do you want to be a resident? A resident sits here and goes to work, complains on Instagram, and does nothing and just bitches about the system. But a citizen understands that there is sacrifice involved in supporting the Constitution of the United States. And I choose to be a citizen every day. Whether that means I have to put on a funny tailored suit out of my boots and jeans and go do something and talk on these podcasts and spend hours a week on FaceTime, Zoom calls, or dinner meetings or whatever else to get people involved and give them the motivation to do it. Or you could be a resident and complain and just want a bunch of free stuff because it's easy.
Yeah.
Why choose not to do the easy thing? I choose to do the hard thing. And you have to learn to have the courage to be disliked. A lot of people are going to hate you on this stuff. I'm hated by more Republicans than I am Democrats in the state of Colorado. And you want to know why? Because I ask the hard questions and I have expectations that they do what they say they were going to do.
Yeah.
You know, when I see people say, oh, I support the veterans, I support the oil and gas workers, I'm like, really? Because you don't answer my phone calls, because you don't answer anything.
Yeah.
You know, I've gotten in fisticuffs with some pretty high-level politicians in Colorado. I won't say their names because, you know, whatever.
Yep.
You know who I'm talking about. You.
We can
you
guess.
know,
Yep.
You know what I mean? But it's just, you ran on these things, so do it. And if you don't, I will replace you.
Right.
If it's not me, I will find someone to primary you and replace you.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, why am I fighting over mountain lion hunting and, you know, all these useless bills in the state of Colorado when, you know, my taxes are getting higher and kids are losing their rights every day to be individual citizens?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make any sense. You know why? Because you're not at the meeting, George.
Yep.
You're not doing it. So we all, you know, you could, if you could stand in MEPS for 4 hours and show your butthole and do the duck walk, you can show up to your local congressional meeting and start asking questions.
Right.
It's not that hard.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's really where it starts, is you just ask questions. You just ask the people who are elected to do what they said they were going to do. Mm-hmm. And you start making enough noise at that, they can't shut us all up. They just can't. And we're also, I think, coming into this new paradigm where legacy media is going away. I think our voices individually as dads and you know, concerned citizens is going to be more amplified than it's ever been, actually, because what we learned through the past 5 years, the levels of corruption of suppressing people and deplatforming them and all that kind of stuff, it's like it woke enough people up to realize, like, whoa, that's some scary dystopian stuff. We're not going to let that fly. You have more avenues now to actually make your voice heard in meaningful ways than maybe ever before. So it's never been easier, and it's never been more critical that men start stepping up and getting active. And, you know, this isn't a political podcast. It's not. You know, we're not a politics podcast, but politics affects your life. It will. So you have to at least be involved somewhat, and you need to be educating yourself to some level, and in fighting the important local battles, just take care of home. And that doesn't mean just staying in your own home. It's showing up to school board meetings. It's showing up to the town, you know, committee meeting about this. And if you disagree with it, let them know. So,
well, it's not just being a father in your own family. It's being a father to your community, state, and nation.
Right.
It really is.
That's civil service, right?
That is the definition.
You want to be a great citizen of this country, care about it, and fight for it. And the way you fight for it is with our political system most of the time. That's one of the ways you can fight for it. And you don't have to come dedicate your life to politics, but you can certainly vote and you know, support different movements that you believe in. So whatever side of the aisle you're on, I would just like to see men actually taking it seriously for a change.
No, exactly. And I understand, like, the way that elections went this last week, I'm pushed out of the fray in the immediate for the next 2 years, right? You know, but that doesn't mean I can't build the groundwork. That doesn't mean I can't go fundraise for the elections in 2028. I know 2026 and 2027 are a wash right now because of what happened, you know, because of these people are so anti-Trump. You know what I mean? Okay, great. But you want to know what? That's not a signal for me to quit. That's a signal for me to build our base. Yeah. Start podcasting more, start finding candidates. Because in 2028, that election's really going to matter.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And if we don't do something now in the next couple of years, building up your candidacy, building up your reputation, start talking to people, getting involved, it's going to be a loss. And for me, this is like the most important thing for me right now is I need to pass the DeRito Act.
Yeah.
The DeRito Act must get passed. If you're out there, please call your congressman, your senators, say you need to support the DeRito Act. You can find me on Instagram, adam.DeRito2010. You can email me at aDeRito@secursecure.com. I need as many bill support sponsors as I can. If we can get this passed, we're going to help tens of thousands of veterans who've been retaliated for having their mental health records falsified. And if we can get this passed, then that gives me more financial funding in order to find other candidates to start making sure that whatever happened to me doesn't happen to anyone ever again.
Yeah.
And we're going to help tens of thousands of veterans who've been retaliated against, who did have the bravery to stand up and say something and do the right thing and live by the ethos that we live by.
Yeah, I have a friend that I can't talk about on camera due to the kind of situation we'll talk about offline that I think you're going to be interested about hearing. It's other situations, but I know it's happening at scale. There's a lot of coming after veterans unjustly that's going on.
Yeah.
And it's insane because that's the deal, right? Is we go and do what we do over there so that we get taken care of back home, and the opposite is occurring more often than not. So that needs to change, and yeah, I'm with you. Let's get that bill passed. Call up your elected officials, let them hear about it, and I've got some people here in Tennessee I want to try and connect you with that might be able to help push that over the goal line for you, at least from this point of view. So
no, I really appreciate you letting me come on the show today. And I know I'm not a dad. I can't wait to be a dad, but I hope that the suffering and the pain that I've had to endure over my life can at least inspire some of you who have been going through a lot of these struggles yourselves to understand the hierarchy of relationships, put God first in your life, understand total surrender, and be a moral and ethical person. And it's going to work out, I promise.
Yeah. Adam, I really appreciate you coming on and telling it like it is. It's good to see someone involved in politics who's also just going to call it straight. So it's been a real pleasure to get to know you here today and working with you. I wish you all the best, and hopefully you pin those railroad tracks here pretty soon.
I really appreciate that, man. Remember, kids, go out and start setting off Roman candles and zip tying their tents shut. Don't get bullied. Be a man.
All righty. And with that, let's get climbing the mountain of fatherhood. We'll see you in the next episode. Adam, thanks, man.
Thanks.
Thanks for watching this episode of the podcast. If you're on YouTube, drop a subscription to us. And if you are listening on Apple or Spotify, please leave us a review. It helps greatly. If you are also ready to level up as a man, check out Elite Sentinel Coaching, our program designed specifically for men, where we forge men into leaders. We turn cowards into kings, weaklings into warriors. Become the hero in your story. Join us today.